Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace, my go-to for building a website and online shop. Hello everyone. This month I thought I would switch it up and not just do another painting time-lapse video. So today's video is going to be kind of fun and different, and I hope you all enjoy it. Today I'm going to revisit some of my older artworks from the pre-COVID times and chat with you all about what I liked about each piece and also what I would change / improve upon. So this will be sort of a walk down memory lane and also a self-critique session, which I have not done in a while. So I hope you enjoy. First up, we have Koi, and it's one of my first pieces that I was actually happy with, and I can't believe it's 9 years old already. Time sure does fly. I actually painted the drips in the background using watercolor on watercolor paper, and then I overlaid a sheet of translucent vellum on top and did the oil painting part on the vellum. So we have this kind of two-layered look. And to this day, I haven't been able to achieve this level of creativity and experimentation when it comes to playing around with different environmental textures and abstractions and techniques. So it's something I'm trying to kind of recapture. It's funny because my older art seems to naturally have this kind of loose brushwork and textured paint application that I am now working hard to rediscover in my newer work. But yeah, what I would change. One is the way the body and the water kind of hit the water line. It's always bothered me. There's a weird kind of fleshy blob where her clavicle and neck anatomy should be. And there's kind of no room for her shoulders if you look at like where the hair is falling. Her shoulders should kind of be visible there. The anatomy just doesn't make much sense, and that's kind of to be expected since I had no understanding of anatomy at the time, so definitely will fix a lot of the anatomical mistakes. That would be my main thing for this piece. Next up, we have Forbidden Cove, and it's one of the hardest pieces I've ever done, but it started my obsession with mermaids, and I made an entire solo exhibition out of this aesthetic, and this was the very first piece I painted in that collection, so it is quite special to me. Right off the bat, I would have varnished this piece and then photographed it if I could go back in time. This was before I really knew how to properly photograph my work, so even in this photo, there are a lot of parts that are really faded and sunken in, and I just wish I would have varnished it and then photographed it. But yeah, in terms of the piece, what I would improve on is I would have loved to use a combination of soft edges, value hierarchies, differences in saturation and chroma levels, and also atmospheric perspective to add more depth to the environment, because right now all the corals are kind of crammed into the same foreground plane and it just feels very flat, and I just would have loved to have incorporated more like three-dimensionality into it, especially fading away into that kind of blurry turquoise opening in the back. And this is a common critique for a lot of my work from this era, and even to this day I sometimes have a hard time restraining myself, but I would probably tone down the sparkles a bit. I don't think every painting needs a lot of sparkles, maybe just like a little bit when the time is appropriate, but yeah, in this case I might have just toned down the sparkles a little. Up next, we have Hymns des Antheas. I don't know why I made the title so French and weird, but another mermaid piece from the same collection. I love the limited palette of this one. So for this series, I made so many mermaid paintings, and I tried very hard to avoid just using only crystal blue waters for every single one. So this piece kind of stood out because it's very muted and dark and almost kind of grayscale and monochromatic. And it almost feels like she's not underwater at all, which I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but it definitely made this my favorite piece in that entire collection. I also loved showcasing the webbed fingers on her hand and just leaning into an unconventional, super fish-like design of the mermaid where they're not exactly pretty in a pleasant way. They almost look a little scary, which I thought made them all the more intriguing to look at. Back then, I used to be obsessed and addicted to painting hair, which I still am definitely. But my hair painting technique has changed a lot. So during this time, I wanted to render every single strand, but since I didn't have a brush that was the width of one single strand of hair, the strands came out still looking quite thick, almost like she had hair that was made of yarn. So if I were to redo this, I would definitely combine some clusters of hair so that they actually look like thin hair clustered together and zoomed out rather than trying to render every strand. Because trying to render every strand, it just makes them look thick instead of, wispy and kind of thin and random. So yeah, ironically, combining the hair strands into bigger clusters and then every now and then having a few random strands actually makes the hair look thinner and softer, versus trying to render every single strand actually kind of does the opposite of what you intend sometimes. I would have also exaggerated the contrapposto on her pose. So like the shoulder that's up, I would have pushed it up even more. The shoulder that's dropped, I would drop it even more. And then I would have the angles of the hips kind of be the opposite, so that it creates this contrapposto pose. I think that would have made a more interesting and dynamic gesture. And maybe just zoomed out a bit to actually show some of the hip. It feels kind of cut off at a weird spot. And lastly, I think I would have glazed one more layer on top to smooth out the subtle gradient around the outer edges of her hair so that she can fade into the dark background more gradually and elegantly. Another funny French name for a painting, Les Aventurieuses, which means the adventurers. I often would name my pieces in French if I didn't know what to name them in English or if I wanted to sound extra fancy. So yeah, that's something I do. And I do that with Mandarin now. Sometimes if I can't find a name for a painting, I will name it a cool single like Mandarin character and it sounds like really cool. Anyways, okay, so for this piece, I had two main inspirations. One is Mark Ryden's exaggerated facial and body proportions, where the subjects kind of all feel like baby dolls. And two, there was a Taylor Swift commercial I saw on TV at the time where she was riding a giant version of her cat through a magical forest, and I thought it was so freaking cute. So my piece became a Mark Rydenized cartoon version of me riding my cat Boogerface, and we're both giants walking through this kind of almost Swiss-looking landscape. I loved the fun and whimsy of this piece and how it looks very different from my other works. I also spent a long time rendering the environment, particularly the sunset sky, and I'm very happy with how the clouds turned out because I think it was my first time painting clouds that were lit that way with those colors. But what I would change is I would definitely not fill up the foreground grassy plains with dense flowers everywhere, and I might have toned down the sparkling stars in the sky. I think the piece just feels a little too jam-packed with different elements everywhere that it might be better to give it some room to breathe, have some empty spaces. And I might also fix the reflection on the lake. I don't know, right now it just feels a little bit artificial and fake, and none of the colors of the lake are present anywhere else in the piece. So I might just give it an actual reflection or at least use the same shade of blue as the sky. Also, I might have changed the skin tone a bit to incorporate more colors from the environment, just because right now the skin tones kind of stick out as their own separate like segment in terms of just the colors in the skin tone are not present anywhere else and vice versa. And I would also place the figure like more snugly onto the cat, have like the fur where the figure is sitting on the cat's back, have that fur be like flattened and deformed a bit to show the weight of the figure on top of the soft fur. I would also probably paint more fur, in front of the legs and just to show the legs kind of sinking into this thick plush fur. Right now the body is just kind of almost barely floating on top of the fur rather than feeling really nestled in there. Oh wow, this took way longer than I thought. So I'm going to wrap up this video for now, but I will be continuing this series in a part 2 video coming up very shortly. And I hope you all enjoy this new type of video. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more content like this that's not just painting time lapses. But yeah, hope you had fun. I definitely had fun making this. And I will catch you all in the next video soon. Bye. And of course, you guessed it, my eternal never-ending sale is still going on in my shop. So if you'd like 20% off your order of prints and originals, just enter the code HOLIDAY at happyd-artist.com. And if you're interested in learning more about how to paint and draw, I have lots of art educational content on my Patreon page, including exclusive video tutorials, step-by-step photo tutorials, live streams, podcasts, and even surprise art gift boxes. All available at patreon.com/happydartist. I'd love to have you join my Patreon family. A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video and supporting the art community. I've been using Squarespace for 10 years now, and it's been an integral part of being able to make a living as an artist. Aside from their beautiful customizable templates and easy-to-use interface, Squarespace now has so many robust tools to help make website building be both effective and intuitive. There's a new design intelligence feature that uses a combination of industry experience and cutting-edge AI to help you make a website bespoke to your brand and digital identity. Squarespace takes the intimidation out of setting up an online shop with their intuitive e-commerce platform that accepts every type of payment method you can imagine, all with just a few simple clicks, so you can easily sell your work all around the world. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/happydartist to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Also, if you want to check out more artworks, works in progress, and just random daily artist adventures, feel free to check out my Instagram, and you can follow me at the handle @happydartist.